podcast. Jared Johnson, Chad Morgan, our host, and we have a special guest today, Andrew Baker.
Let's go, Andrew. Thanks for having me, gents.
Oh, special guest. He's actually
Future co-host.
she's a future co-host. It's actually Andrew is one of our newest agents on the team of Infinite Real Estate Group, and we're so excited to have you because, I mean, quite frankly, you have been showing people how to actually work.
Yeah, it's been kicking my butt.
Work?
So
We
no,
don't do
so
none of that around here.
I want to kind of dive into. So for all you that's listening, if you have any questions for Andrew, feel free to make them in the comments.
Are we live?
We are live. Our
Live.
trusty engineer Chaz will be monitoring those to answer any questions, intimate and all.
And infinite.
Infinite.
It's on already.
Infinite. Oh, no, my mom's already on.
Oh, hi, Mrs. Johnson.
Mrs. Johnson, welcome.
She's my biggest fan.
Nice, congrats.
I pretty much got like lots of followers and reviews. They're all my mom's profiles.
Gosh.
Mrs. Johnson. She's a real G.
Anyway, so Andrew's new on our team. I can relate to a lot of what you are going through right now. And because I've heard you voice some of your concerns and your stresses. You just came from a holy shit, man. Like I have got the hiccups. So I apologize. Can't get rid of these stupid things. So if anybody has any tips on how to get rid of hiccups,
Drink some water upside down.
Scare him.
how do you
Chad's
drink
quitting.
water upside down?
Huh?
Chad's quitting.
They're gone.
No. So I came from the tech industry,
Mhm.
made a very good living for myself, and then decided one day to quit and do real estate full time. And I mean, really, that's in a nutshell your story. But I want
Yep.
you to kind of go over it and kind of what led you to this decision. And let's just go from there, and let's just get in there and introduce Andrew and
Yeah.
let him tell our viewers what's up.
Yeah, appreciate it. Yeah, pumped to be here. Gosh, I think my road to this decision has been long. I've been in tech, different sales roles in tech specifically for about 4 or 5 years now. Before that, did a couple summers knocking doors. Before that, was a personal trainer. Before that, went door to door selling religion for a couple years. So I've been in tech for a while. Been in W2 for quite a long time. And I think the more organizations I've been a part of, I think the more I've realized that like I don't really want to be part of a big corporate structure.
Yeah.
Personally,
Why
like,
not?
why not?
It
Um,
sucks.
it's-
Just kidding. I wouldn't have that much experience in it, but Andrew does.
I think it's like it's really, you know, it's hard to say for another position for like your director of sales, your VP of sales, whatever it is. It's hard to say that you understand that role and to say that you would do things differently. But I have increasingly over the years found myself saying I would do that differently. I would approach that topic differently, especially as the economy's gone down over the last year. There's a lot of pressure, I think, in sales roles, and I firmly believe that most leaders take that pressure and pass it down the chain. Shit rolls downhill, is a manner of speaking.
I saw that time and time again.
Yeah.
And it was just, I was kind of like in, after I was an engineer for a while, I was a field engineer, worked on a lot of products.
Yep.
Then I moved into a leadership role,
Yep.
but I was like 3 layers down.
Yes.
And it was the same exact bullshit that I got from the top.
Yep.
This is not going to be good. But no, like it was just the same stuff that came all the way down from the top. Like you'd hear it from the president of the company, and it would literally just get rolled right down.
Yep.
And there was no ingenuity, there was no thought behind it, there was no leadership behind it. It was always just, why aren't we getting the numbers that we should be, or how
Yeah.
come our numbers look this way? How come our paperwork isn't getting done. I'm like, everyone keeps asking the questions.
Yeah.
And I felt like all I was supposed to be doing was nagging my employees to get their work done.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%, right? Like, and that's really just what it all turns into. So, and I think I realized, hey, this is actually pretty, like, company agnostic. This is something that exists everywhere. And for me, I was managing a sales team, for about a year and a half, a group of SDRs, managing, training, onboarding. And I realized, like, for me, if I wanted to progress in that career, and I love the leadership side, I love the coaching, I love the training. It's one of the most fulfilling things for me. But I kind of realized, hey, if I want to take this career step to the next level, it's going to be a director. And that means more hours than I'm currently working, more time away from my family. For it was going to be around 160 to $200,000 a year
Yeah.
is what I was going to be making, and that's amazing money, right? That's life changing money. That sets you up really well. For me personally, though, like that trade off of, hey, I'm going to need to leave the house at 7:15, probably come back at 5:30, 6 o'clock, day in day out for the next however many years. Just not worth that for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I think so. That was a big thing. Was like, hey, you know, if I continue in this career, that's where I'm going. Okay, I don't really love that. Um, do I want to go be an individual contributor? Okay, well, let's play with that idea. And I think, again, just kind of took that thought exercise a little bit further. As an employee, as a sales employee, I am being leveraged. Meaning, if I make $150,000 a year as a sales rep, the company needs to be making probably 250 a year or more from my labors, probably more,
Yeah.
right? Maybe even double or triple that, like $300,000 to $450,000 a year. And so that realization was like, well, hey, if I actually have the skill set here to produce $300,000 to $450,000 a year of revenue for this company, why the hell? And I'm getting paid 150. Why the hell would I not go and do that for myself if I already have the proven skill set of being able to do that for someone else? So I think that was a big, like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? And then the third, this was, kind of the third nail in the coffin, I guess, so to speak, is with a 9 to 5. If I were to increase my hours to 50 a week, okay, 25% increase in work, does that actually equate to 25% increase in pay? Most of the time, no.
Yeah.
Especially down that leadership route, right? Those extra hours are only going to increase my take home pay maybe by a certain amount. And so it's kind of the culmination of those three things that, hey, shit rolls downhill, company agnostic. Two, if I were to continue this leadership career down the path, okay, that's not really a life that I want, despite it being really well paying. Three, if I were to go be an individual contributor, I'm being over leveraged. Why wouldn't I just take those skills and go do it myself?
Yeah. No, and if you think about, I mean, because I thought a lot about this when I was in in the field, and I was traveling a lot, like to the point where over 100 flights a year, over 100 hotel stays a year, and time wasn't even a factor for me.
Yeah.
Time wasn't something like, well, if I just did a little more, or I did a little, or put in a little more work, like I realized how valuable my time was.
Mm.
And I think we'll get to this value of time here in a little bit, because there's something that I think you're gonna really learn, or at least just some advice from myself that would really help out. But I realized that there was nowhere else for me to really go
Yeah.
within my role. Like, it was all about, if I wanted to go to the next level, I had to wait for somebody else, to get let go, or to get promoted, or to step aside, or get
Yeah.
leave to a new company. So
You're waiting for a vacuum to
yeah,
open.
I was just waiting for something else to happen. And there was other leaders that were also waiting for the same thing. And I'm like, man, it was an interesting experience for me because our director or area manager role opened up and they asked me to apply. And I was already talking to my director about leaving. And he's like, hey, I'd love for you to apply for the area job. And, I later found out that it was just an interview count that they needed type of thing. But I went into that whole interview with the idea of I'm not just going to show them who I am and what I'm capable of because they already know that about me. They know that my team had less turnover than anybody else. Our numbers were as cleaner than anybody else's. Our paperwork was turned in like we were a very profitable territory. And like, so they already know how I work.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go into this whole interview understanding what they are looking for within an area manager and if that jives with how I want to progress in my career. And I was like so disappointed when I asked them about, they said, well, how would you handle this or how would you handle this? And I said, well, that's a really good question. And I would answer it, but then I would say, I would like to know from you guys, do you have any questions? Regardless of who's in this role, how does leadership plan on handling these problems? And they're like, well, what do you mean? Like, well, I said, well, because I've been with this company for 10 years and it's been the same exact problems for 10 years, just presented a different way. How are we going to get paperwork done? How are we going to get workflow accomplished? How are we going to, service the people we need? It was the same exact questions asked over and over and over. So I realized very quickly that everything was just getting passed down the line. And so it was, I walked out of that interview like, holy cow, like these guys don't, like, there is no agenda to get this done. They
Yeah.
just want somebody to handle it and they want some magic to happen when it does. But at the same time, trying to get in there with your own personal skills and your own way of doing things has to be approved by everybody that's telling you can't do it. And so very annoying. Just it was a trap, just like,
Yeah.
and there was nowhere else to go.
Yeah.
And I realized real quick the money was only,
Yeah. At some point, it's just not worth it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like, even if, like, as a real estate agent, even if I only make enough to just cover my expenses, like, guess what? I control my time. I get to
Totally.
spend as much time as I need. I can run it the way I want. Kind of on that other side of, hey, like at a W-2, if I work 10 more hours, I'll only make a little bit more. But
Mm.
what's interesting, and I'm not anywhere near this point with my business, just being a week into this, but like there's also this idea of, hey, like you can ask the question, is there a way that I could work 25% less hours and make the same pay?
Absolutely.
You can, right? If you get to the processes, if you get there in your business, again, that's maybe step 10 and I'm still step 0.5 with my business, but like that's extremely alluring, right? Hey, can I work less and still make the same amount? Okay, what systems, processes, people do I need to bring in? Hire an assistant. Would that do it? Like there's all these things that you can play around. Um, there's I'm feeling the weight of that decision of, oh my gosh, I have full responsibility over my income. And that's a double-edged sword, right? At one hand, it's like, oh my gosh, I can build this however the hell I want to. But
Yeah.
then on the other side, it's like, oh geez,
So,
it's
so I actually wanted to
weight.
ask you about this because I saw your TikTok about the emotions that you were going through on day one, and and
So much.
I brought this
Yeah.
up to you, and I was actually laying in bed and I shared this with Amy because I'm like, holy cow, this was my very experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I appreciate you documenting that because it almost made me like it made me emotional because
Yeah.
I'm like, I remember sitting in my office thinking, what the hell did I just do?
Yes.
I was making 150,000 a year,
Yes.
had about $1,000 vehicle stipend. Insurance was incredible.
Yeah.
And I literally just sat in my desk saying, I got no work.
Yeah.
I don't know what did I just do?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
walk me through that
yeah.
because it was, I think that is something that anyone could benefit from because it is a natural progression that we,
Yeah.
son of a, oh, this is going to be good. We're all just having a
Yeah.
little merry time here.
Sure.
So yeah, walk me through that.
Yeah. So last Monday was day one. Super emotional day. Super, super emotional day. It really just hit me like the weight of that decision. I'm married. My wife stays at home with our two boys, 3 years old and almost 10 months old. It's like, oh my gosh. I'm the sole provider in my household, and I just willingly went to a $0 salary.
You're crazy, bro.
It's psycho, right? We just sold our home, so luckily we've got I think about 13 months of if I made zero money, 13 months of expenses paid for. That was the only way I could do it. For me, just emotionally, that was the only way I'd feel comfortable is if
Yeah.
we had a year plus of
Mhm.
backup. Because I think a year is plenty of time to turn
Oh,
this into
totally.
something successful. You need less than that, right? But for me to feel okay as the provider of my family, I really needed more.
Sure.
And luckily we got that. Um, but yeah, it was in all of last week, I'm still emotional, right? I believe human beings are emotional beings, but um yeah, I think it's in this specific post that you're referencing, like I really deep down have issues feeling like I deserve goodness in my life. There is a lot where I just kind of feel like I deserve suffering, right? And there's 100 different reasons for that, but I'm now in a position where even though I don't feel like I deserve success, I have to go get it. And I think like the honestly the best word I can use to describe is just it's uncomfortability. I am very, very actively, aggressively searching for something that I feel that I don't deserve. And to be honest, the only way I'm able to rationalize it right now is I probably don't deserve it, but my wife does. My sons, they sure as hell deserve it.
Sure.
So it's like to this point, and I share that with my wife, and she's amazing, and she shared, well, you need to figure out how you deserve it too. I'm like, I'll figure that out at some point.
Mhm.
But for right now, like you and our boys deserve it. So I'm gonna give absolutely everything I have to this. And that's like why I'm working as hard as I am.
Yeah, it's crazy because I mean I feel the same thing in so many different ways. It's like, and I don't know, Chad, what do you think about that? Because like I could relate to that. It's like,
Yeah.
man, I don't know if I really deserve success.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I don't is that a man thing or like
Well,
like
I
how does that feel for you?
for me personally, I feel like it's maybe the same way as you guys, but maybe in a different way at the same time. Um, but either way, how I picture it is I think even now, after the little bit that I have accomplished so far in my career, I still don't feel that successful.
Yeah.
I mean, I know I've done well, but I want to do more, and there's a much better place I want to be. And
Sure.
a part of me constantly is kind of, maybe it's us, I don't know, doubting ourselves, or maybe it's just kind of a demon in our head, kind
Sure.
of saying those things to us. Because I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, anyone deserves what they work for, whoever they are, and wherever they come from. Um, so
All
yeah,
right,
to
well,
some
starting today,
degree.
But I
starting today, we are all working together.
I mean, I love that idea though. And that's like self introspection I've had to dive through.
Yeah,
It's like, do I actually believe that I don't deserve it, or do I have some severe self doubt and it's just
yeah,
manifesting as a deserving of
totally.
success, right?
I think a lot of us experience this self doubt.
Yeah.
And I think that's because our whole like how do I just describe this? This was something that kind of like I started looking at because since I was a kid, I've always known that like self-employment was my thing, like owning a business, inventing something, that entrepreneurship,
Yeah.
like that's what I gravitated towards my whole career. Even during my whole career, I was never happy with that career. I was always having side hustles, trying to make something work. And I think the more I thought about that, like I, I I tend to blame our school systems in a way,
Mm.
Mm.
or it just on how I was raised. I mean, my mom and dad encouraged me to, go after my dreams and stuff, and like um, do what I want to do and what makes me happy, other than be a tattoo artist. My mom, if she's listening, she didn't want me to be a tattoo artist, but I really wanted to.
Gosh, Mrs. Johnson is
Uh,
so unacceptable.
but what I realized though was we were taught in school to pick a career, and I remember like in junior high and elementary school, and then high school, it got really pressured on picking a career,
Yeah.
and it's just crazy to think about. And I'd be curious, like as the younger, generations and stuff. Like for me, it was always like there was nothing in our head other than being a firefighter, a police
Yeah.
officer, a doctor,
Mm.
a
Yeah.
lawyer, or a
Engineer.
nurse. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, it was, I mean, but if you think about all the possibilities there are
Mm.
within jobs and the degrees that we have, and it was always fascinating for me to see who was in what roles and what, their schooling was because it very rarely matched up
Yeah.
to what they went to school
Yeah.
for. And I never got the lessons that I was capable of whatever I wanted to do.
Yeah.
I never got the lessons of, like if I just applied myself to what I'm passionate about,
Yeah.
that there's a way to capitalize off that or monetize that.
Sure.
And like now that I experienced that and I've seen that, like, I mean, I'm on my fifth business now, and I've bought and sold, grown them, sold them, and now I've found something that I really love to the point where it's not even about selling houses for me anymore. It's about finding people with the same passions of
Yeah.
doing something that's bigger than themselves and helping them grow and see their potential.
Yeah.
And like to me, there's not a greater feeling because we're all capable of more than what we've been given.
For sure. Um, yeah, the household I grew up in, it was always you're going to go to college, get a degree, go do something very very traditional,
Yeah.
and I don't blame my parents for that at all. Like especially my dad, he pushed it a lot more than my mom. But my dad actually went to school and got his degree when I was a kid. Like I remember dad up in the studying, doing whatever he could to
Hmm.
get his degree, and for him, that was the only way to progress his career. He's a
Yep.
financial planner. He runs a great book of business now. But when I was a kid, like that was the only thing he could go do, really, in that career path to go and progress. So
Hmm.
I don't blame him for that at all. But I think um, on that note of doing something bigger than themselves, like I'm in that camp, I think. Like, I'm trying to do something I've never done before. I'm trying to make it huge. Um, it's actually last Monday, we talked about it was a pretty emotional day. I actually saw, I think I went and got Taco Bell for lunch. I need some dopamine. I need some
Taco
comfort
Bell has
food.
dopamine, everybody.
Oh my gosh, what a hit of joy it gives me. But walking back from the parking lot, um, my one of my wife's friend's husband, Paul. We're acquaintances. We're not the best of friends, but like, hey, we know each other. We're
Hey,
we're
Paul.
on good terms. What's up, Paul? I actually saw him and we just chatted for a minute. And Paul was just very matter of fact. He's like, "Well, shoot, man, it sounds like this can be good for you. Like that
Uh,
uncomfortability makes you grow." I'm like, "Damn it!"
Come on, Paul.
Come on, Paul, don't give me such good advice.
So
But now I'm clinging to that.
yeah,
Like, like so today, so I took yesterday off because my wife was out of town, and I made a commitment that, hey, I said I was going to make 500 calls a week. If I had taken 2 days off, okay, maybe that adjusts, but I only took 1 day off. I'm going to make 125 calls a
A
day,
day.
Tuesday through Friday.
Mm-hmm.
And I passed 100. I was like, "Gosh, I don't, okay, I'm going to make these last 25." And they
Yeah.
were a grind, but I can almost still hear those words in my head of, hey, this uncomfortability will make you grow. And I kind of had a self dialogue of, you bitch of a brain, you figure this shit out because we're making these calls, right? So it's
got to talk to yourself, and you got to.
absolutely,
I remember we, as part of our coaching organization, David Goggins came and spoke to us,
yeah,
and he talked about how the human brain really only utilizes about 40% of what it's got.
yeah,
And so when you feeling down, whether it's physical or
yeah,
mental, or like, you've got to find a way to reach in there and grab that other 60% because it's
yeah,
there.
yeah,
You just got to use it. We have a saying in our house that me and my wife live by, and our kids are adapting it too, which is, find something that um do something that makes you excited and uncomfortable at
yeah,
the same time. And we've always lived by that because that's where growth happens,
yeah,
is when we're uncomfortable. That's where success is found, is when we're being vulnerable with ourselves and scared and
yeah.
you know
Totally.
Eh,
Oh, go ahead,
no,
Andrew.
you go for it.
Oh, I was just gonna chime in on that, talking about being uncomfortable, and I think that goes back to the reason why we're taught so often in the places I grew up in a similar environment, I think, which nothing against that,
It
but
works for a lot of people.
and
Sure.
my dad being very like, you're gonna go to college as well, you're gonna get a degree, you're gonna graduate, you're gonna go get a nice cush 6-figure job.
Yeah.
Um, which by the way, side note, I was talking with my brother-in-law and sister last night. We were talking about six figures. It's not even that much money anymore.
No, it's
no.
not. Oh my
I mean,
gosh, no, it's
if
You're
not.
gonna keep making that at your push corporate jobs,
Sure.
but it's all based around the fact that people are just uncomfortable
I have
with
never seen an
being uncomfortable.
yeah, no,
Yeah.
exactly. I have never seen an industry where like, how do I, like, I'd love it for somebody to tell me that there's an industry out there that keeps up with the inflation of our
Yeah,
economy.
right.
I have yet to. I mean, I was
Real
ecstatic
estate
at
does.
3%.
Yeah.
I mean, real estate does for sure. So it goes back to that concept. The reason they tell us that is because they don't want us to be uncomfortable.
Sure.
I mean, they want the best for us.
They want
Sure.
you to
And
get a
I think
trophy.
I think
Yeah.
society has really ingrained into our brains and our emotions that being uncomfortable isn't a good thing.
Yeah.
Otherwise, that wouldn't be the concept. It wouldn't be go do what you want and pursue your dreams. It would be, it would be more, okay, let's be comfortable. And that's what a college degree will do for you. And I think Andrew and Jared are great examples of that as well, but especially you having experienced this more recently and it's a little more fresh. You essentially had a job lined up where you could be making, you said 160 to 200K a year.
Yeah.
It was there on paper. Doesn't that sound super nice, right?
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't consider it on paper, but like it was definitely a next step, right?
Yeah.
Like I think I had the skill set, personal brand, you
And
know, it
and
it's tough.
yeah, and 9 times out of 10, someone with that job offer, that opportunity would have taken it instead
Yeah.
of quitting to potentially make, not that this is going to happen, but everyone will be like, "Oh, you quit your job to go be self-employed, that you could make nothing this year, right?"
I could.
So, and that runs through my head all the time too, but I mean, obviously you won't. Um, but I think it just goes back to the idea of we are so like risk adverse as people
Sure.
because we hate being uncomfortable.
Sure.
And we hate being uncomfortable because comfortable makes life easier, right?
Yeah.
So I think that, yeah, while 9 times out of 10 people are taking that job, you decided to get uncomfortable and find something you could go pursue and really grow. And yeah, maybe this year won't be the year you make, 200K right out the gate. Could be though. Maybe it won't. Maybe it will.
I think he
Um,
will.
you could have
Doing it.
secured it with that job offer, right?
Sure.
But I think, over time, you're gonna. I mean, it's gonna pay its dividends for sure.
I think for sure.
And like you said, no more 50 hours. Um,
Yeah.
I mean, some weeks in real estate, we do work more than that, but
Oh,
you
it's
have
gonna
the
be that.
ability to
Yeah.
control, and that's how it has to be at first.
Yeah.
Hey, there's nothing
Yeah.
better than bringing your little boy with you
I'm
But yeah,
and
you have
showing houses or doing
little
an
guys
open
can
you
finish
house.
have
sell it
yeah,
for
Oh
me.
man, they're going to be doing incredible
and
things.
in a way, you have so much more control over your life
Yeah.
that it's almost as if, okay, taking this uncomfortable step will ultimately help me become more comfortable, more successful.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it just goes to show, okay, like people say getting a W-2 job over being self-employed, that's way less risky. But what are you risking over
Yeah.
not being self-employed?
Yeah. I mean, I've been laid off twice over the last 3 years. Barely survived the third round at the company I was at here in November.
Mm,
So it's like in praise my wife. She's told me this for years. I was just scared to make the jump. And so I think I was listening to something from Jocko Willink. He's like, well, if you want to do something like and you're scared, well, you should
yeah,
you should probably go do that thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
It's like,
totally.
okay. All right, Jocko. Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
and
We're coming.
it just goes to show, okay, yeah, a corporate job could be safe and cush, but guess who freaking owns all those companies?
Oh, absolutely.
People who had to make that same jump, people
Yeah.
who are self-employed. So it's like, okay, what are the
100%.
risks of being employed and what are the risks of going and doing my own thing?
I,
Yeah.
th-
There's
I think the longer you get to know me, you're going to realize that um, I'll quote a conference all the time, but I was in another conference with Tim Grover, and I remember a quote that he had that kind of goes in lines with what we said because I was like, holy cow, I'm writing that down because I got to live by that motto.
Yeah.
And he said, if you think success is hard, wait till you get the bill for regret.
yeah,
Yes.
And he just sat there in silence after he said that. And then he said it again. I was like, holy cow. Like,
Yeah.
I'll take that. I'll take the hard work of success any day over that bill of
totally.
regret.
Sure. And I think it like obviously the best time to do something like this would have been like 8 years ago, when I was single, had
hmm
0 expenses. The next best time when my wife was working, uh, and I just kind of realized the timing's only going to become worse and worse and worse and worse the longer I wait. And so, yeah, I've got 2 boys at home, an infant and a toddler. But like it'll probably be even worse if I wait to do this. So I also like time is like
hmm
time's a fickle thing, right? And I just realized the longer I waited to start my own business, control my own destiny, to use a cheesy term, the harder it was going to be. So it really was. I need to do this now, or honestly, I'm probably never going to do this, and I'm going to work a 9 to 5 for the next 40 years, and have fun on my 2 weeks of vacation a year because
You got to
I'm
make sure you have the PTO.
well, I am such a sucker for the unlimited PTO model.
uh-huh.
Screw the corporations for doing something like that because they
Yeah.
know people take them less. But I almost you cannot I could not mentally take vacation. It's just like I could not open Slack. I could not try to solve problems for people on my
Yeah.
team. And so yeah, so
Well, you're
again,
just naturally driven.
yes.
And I remember like hearing all these things from you. And when you came in and talked to us, I mean, it was like 6 months before you even, I mean, you came and talked to us before you even
Yeah.
started your classes.
I think it was like mid-January. I
Yeah.
had just bought the course from Stringham.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I could just
I remember
tell
that.
by your drive, like, oh, this guy's going to be good.
Yeah.
So I kind of want to get into that now because
Yeah.
I did want this to be something that agents out there that are struggling because there's a ton of agents out there right now that are wondering where their book of business is going. I mean, we're coming into the summer months, and
Yeah.
I guarantee you, there's 90% of the real estate agents out there have zero potential in their pipeline.
Yeah.
Which to me is the scary part. And if I was asked you right now how many people are in your pipeline, you've only been at this for 5 days,
Yeah.
and I know it's not empty.
No.
So
No.
He's got an
share
appointment
with
tonight.
us.
Yeah, appointment tonight. I've set 4 appointments thus far. I have 4 or 5 other people
Great.
that I've been talking with to look at, some
Great.
possible
Yeah, so
purchases.
I'd call those I always classify my pipeline as a 30, 60, 90.
Yeah.
Who's in my 30 day, who's in my 60 day,
Yeah.
who's in my 90 day.
Yeah.
And depending on what I'm looking for through my goals,
Yeah.
I know I need to have X amount of people in each one of those slots. Like if I want to do, 50 transactions this year, I know that I better have at least 6 to 7 people in that 30-day pipeline, 60-day pipeline, and 90-day pipeline. And so, 5 days into it, you
Yeah.
already got,
I have 2 people in the 30 day for sure.
see, like that's incredible.
I think another 2 to 3 in the 60 and maybe 1 in the 90.
All
There
right,
you go.
so I know people are wondering, how have you been doing this?
Just calling.
Making your phone calls.
Doing what he does
Making my phone
best.
call.
Chad, what do I always tell you guys in the office when it comes to closing transactions? Let's see if we get this right, because I think we're on the same wavelength, but a lot of times we're not.
What do you always say when it comes to closing transactions?
No, like, when it comes to being successful in real estate.
Huh?
Go ahead, Chaz.
Stop being a.
Even
Oh.
even a monkey could make a sale on real estate if they just made their.
Yeah, that is true.
I mean, it's all about the phone calls. Most people are waiting for their stupid phone to ring.
Sure.
And if you're going to continue to wait for your phone to ring, you're going to continue to wait for
Yeah.
your phone to ring.
And
Yeah.
I remember something our coach Jared Davis said at the beginning of the year, in January. He said that appointments are the currency of real estate agents.
Yep.
And one of the very top ways you're gonna do that is,
Yeah.
like, if you have no other, like, nothing else to do, you should be dialing on the phone, because that is going to that's putting yourself out there more than anything else, calling people directly and talking about the real estate market. So yeah, I think you said you're trying to set an appointment every day, right?
Yeah.
Right. And that's something that, since he said that, I was like, okay, if I want to be making money, I need to be setting an appointment every day too.
Yeah.
I mean, I have not done that consistently. And some days you'll set 0, the next day you'll set 4.
Yeah.
But it does boil down to, okay, yeah, it doesn't matter who you are, just there's been a lot of situations we've looked back at and we're like, oh, it just goes to show that that agent right there, they made their phone calls, and look at them. Despite their personality, their skill set, who they are, they got the job done because they picked up the phone.
It
So,
doesn't matter what platform you're on.
yeah.
I mean, I know a lot of great agents here in Utah, and they all do business differently. But if you boil down to the core of it, they're doing the exact same thing that we're preaching our new agents to do. And that's just pick up the phone.
Yeah.
There's nothing worse, even if you're just nurturing your SOI, there's nothing worse than going to a family reunion or a family function and realizing that your brother or your cousin that you've known for so long just bought a home with someone else.
Brutal.
Because if you're not telling them that you do real estate and you're in the business, somebody else is telling them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, like, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how you do it, whether it's through some funny videos or cute videos in your reels or your social media, or just sending a text message or simply just picking up the phone. I mean, that's where the power is in making your phone calls.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think action of any kind is critical. I had asked you day one. I mean, even prior, you had brought it up. But I asked like, hey, how many calls a day should I aim for?
Yeah.
You said 100. I was like, okay, I'm gonna go make 100 calls a day.
So I have a friend, he runs a team in another state, and your first day on the job on his team is here's the here's the database. Your job is to make 1,000 phone calls. And it's not that he knows that people are actually going to make 1,000 phone calls, but he wants to know that you're going to go in there and stick out the day and just pound through the
Mhm.
phones as hard as you can. And he said, if they're willing to do that, then I know that they're willing to do what it takes to be successful in real estate.
Yeah.
And I mean, we've been doing that. And what I think what will happen as you start progressing in your career, you're going to start finding those avenues of what I like to call your core pillars of your success. You're going to start finding what you like.
Yeah.
And those phone calls are going to start. Again, if you're joining us now, something's wrong with me. If anyone knows how to cure hiccups, tell me. But you're going to find your groove. You're going to find what you enjoy. And those phone calls are going to be more geared towards the things that bring you joy.
Yeah.
Um, the one thing we always teach, and this is, I mean, this comes back to me being an engineer. Um, I know that numbers and statistics, they don't lie. If we can just have a basis of where we need to start, I know what I need to achieve to accomplish my goal. And so the first thing we always do is look, you're a brand new agent. Let's just say 40 conversations about real estate equals one transaction. I mean, that's pretty average across the country. And we use that all the time to kind of give that foundation. So if you want to do 20 deals this year, you know at the end of the day, you have to do 40 conversations for every transaction. And so it's just simple math from that. And then you can break it all the way down. So if we did,
I think it's 800 conversations.
so if we did, so 800 conversations, we know that there's 6 months left in the year. So if we divide that by 6, you have to make 133 conversations every year. Still seems like a pretty daunting task.
Yeah.
But then if we divide that by 20, which is 20 working days, I know that every single day I have to have 6 to 7 conversations about real estate.
Yeah.
It's not that bad.
No.
You've been kind of tracking your ratios.
Yeah.
How many phone calls are you making now for every conversation?
I'll take last week just because
Yep.
it's a full
Yeah,
week
you
of
don't
my
really have a
business.
lot to go
I-
off
yeah,
of.
yeah,
but
Yeah,
We've got a whole week of data right now.
sure. A whole week. Yeah, the sample size is pretty low. But last week ended up getting 475 calls in. And that was with getting Sierra late Monday afternoon.
Yeah, that was my
Ooh.
bad.
That's all right. That's okay.
The systems guy dropped the ball.
I think it ended up having 74 connects. And then I think I'm gonna create a separate. I think there needs to be another thing under that that says, "Hey, of those connects, how many did you actually have a good
Valid.
conversation?" with?"
Yeah,
Conversation.
we don't need like a fuck you, like and
Yeah.
hang up. We need
No,
we need
100%.
we need an actual conversation about real
Actual-
estate.
Yeah. And I like to track the connect rate regardless because I think that's just part of the funnel. So for me, what I'm seeing right now, about 100 calls a day. I'll talk to, I think most days it's been between like 17 and 20 people. And then of those, usually 1 in 3 result in at least like a 5-minute conversation about, hey, like, you know, oh, you were looking for a home. What does that mean? Why'd the search end? Oh, you purchased? Oh, okay, great. We'll keep in touch. But oh, like, yeah, we're just waiting on interest rates. Okay, great. Like, what about interest rates?
Yeah, what are you waiting
Yeah.
for?
Yeah, what are you waiting for?
For them to stop going
think-
up and down? What?
Yeah.
like,
I think in my experience, to have 6 to 7 conversations a day, you'd be needing to make 100 to 150 phone calls a day.
Yeah.
So
I think
that being said, like, there's a deal line in there, I think, for every 100 phone calls.
absolutely.
Yeah, like 100%.
There's something there for
But how
you.
many people are going to do anything about that?
I don't know.
Well, how many people do we
how
have in our office now that won't make 100 phone
Yeah,
calls
like-
a
I
day?
don't know.
And they're always asking, "Oh my goodness, Andrew,
Like-
you've been in this a week. Where are you getting all your leads from?"
Another
The
thing is
same
how
damn
many
place you are.
from Jared's old BBC
Yeah,
leads.
but then it also goes to show is like, okay, what if we gave someone like an agent, a random agent, 100 people to call, and we knew one person in there for sure was going to buy a house? Like, we're
How
like, hey,
many?
you just got to call these 100 people.
How
We
many would
know
actually
there's
do it?
one person that's gonna say yes and I want to buy a house and get that appointment. Um, I think people will do that. Oh, 100, okay, I'll pick it up and do it right now. But
Yeah.
it's the fact of like we need to have. I learned something called optimistic expectations, right?
Mm.
You need to have optimistic expectations that people are going to pick up the phone and then you're going to get those small closes that end up to landing the appointment that end up to the other
Yeah.
closes that end up closing the deal. So,
I think it's
anyways,
interesting you say that. I feel that over the last couple years of, being in different sales positions and being here, I actually kind of feel like I've worked really hard on having zero expectations
really,
because I've found that the and this kind of takes me back to the if you've heard of the Stockdale paradigm, the Stockdale paradox.
mm-hmm.
It's not Darren Hardy, it's Good to Great, Jim Collins. Great book. But in that book, he talks about he talks about businesses that were fairly mediocre, and that I think within I can't remember the time period, but then within a certain time period, went and doubled. If you had invested in their stock, they doubled like the stock market. So really impressive companies, good to great, great companies. So in these companies, he notices something he calls the Stockdale paradox. It's referencing Colonel Jim Stockdale, who was imprisoned during World War II. And so he says in his memoirs, in the book that he wrote, that the first people that died in the camps were the optimists,
Mm.
the people that just expected, hey, they're going to come to save us next
It's
week.
all gonna be all right.
It's all going to be okay tomorrow. They're going to come get us tomorrow. And he said the people who like absolutely like who survived and did not suffer needlessly were the people that said, "Hey, I do believe something's going to get better at some point, but I know that I'm tough enough to tough it out until that point."
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like a mentality I have on the phones, and I feel like it really helped me out in my last position. I think it's already helping me here is this. Hey, like there may be uh there may be a deal in these 100 calls. There may not be. I'm just going to call anyway. I just don't care. And so and that drove me. I think one day I had like 2 appointments and 40 calls. I was
Yeah,
like, I don't care. I'm gonna go make 100 anyway. And
yeah,
I think that's it's just different strokes for different folks, right? But
It's a
that's the
great
mentality
mentality
I
'cause
have.
it's
Is like,
so easy to give up once you're like, boom, I got my appointment. Peace out,
oh
guy.
my gosh, yes. Uh, on both sides, right?
yeah,
It's easy to give up when you get the appointment, but it's also easy to give up if you've you know if you're sucking. It's like, oh, okay. It's like, no, I'm tough enough to keep going.
totally.
It
So, and
it will get better. I don't know when, but I know I'm tough enough to make it until it does.
here's what I like. Here's what I know about like. I mean, just I've seen so many agents come through here. I've seen so many agents, like people come in saying, I want to be a real estate agent. Most of the time, they want to be a real estate agent, A, because they like watching HGTV, or B, they see their friends doing it and they're making a lot of money.
Yeah.
Because there is a lot of money to be made in real estate. But very few people are making the kind of money that people are seeing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And the one thing that I see in you that I know you're going to be all right is just that very statement that you were talking about being good to great. And um, you're not an optimistic person, as in, like, hey, everything's going to be all right, things will work out. No, you kind of have, I mean, I came in with the same mentality and I still do. And I know Chad does too. We've talked about this before. It's like, it doesn't matter if I closed out 6 deals last month.
Yeah.
The next month, I'm still worried.
you have
How am
nothing.
I going to feed my family?
Yeah,
Like I just, in my head, I am still like, I've got to do more. I've got to do
yeah,
more. my family is counting on me. Like there's so much for me to be fighting for right now. I can't give up.
Yeah.
And it's kind of hard because that's where we're going to be working on time. I mean, we've like me and Chad have almost forced ourselves to go golfing and stuff sometimes during the work hours to kind of break up, that monotony because in our heads, I got to keep going. Like
Yeah.
if I don't keep going, I'm not going to have, yeah, I had a really good month this month, but I won't next month if I don't,
Right.
if I, if I stop.
Yeah.
And like, I can see it in you too. It's like, no, but I can also see the trap that it's going to create if we're not careful.
Yes.
Because when I quit my job, um, I quit specifically because I was losing so many memories and like times with my family through all the traveling that I did. And I remember being on our group chat, on our Tom Ferry group chat, and I remember saying, guys, like, I need some help. Like, I quit my job to do this and to spend more time with my family. And I think it was that first year I closed out like 86 deals that year. But I remember I did a live video feed and it was like at 10:30 at night. And I was emotional, about ready to break down. I'm like, I'm working more now and I see my family less than I did when I was flying 100 flights a year, hotels, 100 plus a year. And I'm like, I need some help. And like everybody jumped in and it's like, hey, let me give you some advice and this. And I remember leaning in on my coach at the time, David Caldwell, if you're listening. Let's see if he listens 52 minutes into the podcast. Shout out to David Caldwell. But I remember him um, telling me, like, giving me boundaries and giving me curfews and stuff, and like calling up my wife and saying, Amy, Jared's not allowed to work past 6 o'clock. Like, if he works past 6 o'clock, you let me know, type of thing. Like, but having those boundaries and then finding out how to work beyond those boundaries was powerful to me because I mean, it was 10:30 at night. I was delivering moving boxes for a client. Like, it sounded so important at the time. And I remember David saying, Jared, they're effing moving boxes. Nobody needs them at 10:30 at night. Like, go home. It's like,
At 10:30.
yeah, yeah. Uh, and
Yeah.
yeah, so I mean,
I will need that at one point.
yeah,
For sure. I um I don't know what you want to call it, ADHD, whatever it is, but there's some aspect to my personality where hyper focus, the like things very much become all consuming. And I can actually feel it already that this is different, mainly because I think previously, like, things that become all consuming are generally like little hobbies, things like that. Whereas, like, man, if I become all consumed with this, which I can already feel and I know I'll need those boundaries, like, life becomes very, very different. I can
yeah,
actually
For sure.
retire by my mid 30s. I can actually do this. I can actually take my wife all over the world, which is what she wants. I don't care about travel, but she wants it. And kind of, going back to the beginning, you know, screw what I want and deserve, but she deserves the world. So we're gonna
but
we're
I
gonna
think
make
you're
it
gonna
happen.
find joy in that,
Yeah, I think
making
Yeah,
so.
sure that your
totally.
wife is
Yes.
taken care of and your kids are taken
Yeah.
care of, and because I find that's my biggest why.
Yes. Hundred
I want to
percent.
make sure my kids are taken care of, and I want to make sure my wife
Yeah.
has what she needs and to make her happy.
Yeah. I
And
and speaking of my kids, becoming a father, this is something that has grown more and more and more, especially as they get older. But like, how am I ever gonna teach my kids to take risks, be strong, be gritty, you know, have a good work ethic? And I think I had a good work ethic, but all those other things, right? How can I teach them that without going to do something like that for myself.
That requires the same things.
It requires the same thing. They learn by example, right? That they won't remember these early years most likely, but I think the lessons with it I'll take forward. So, my boys also deserve a father who's willing to take risks with confidence that he can figure it out, and to kind of tackle his fears, tackle his demons. Like they deserve a father that can do those things, um, and show them how to do that for themselves. And
Yeah.
like I know, like from the outside in, like career, this whole thing could be it could be easily chalked up to, oh, it's just a career change. But like to your point about my like the way I want to run my Instagram and social media, I think is different than most agents. Like I want to talk about that process. Like this really is such an emotional journey, I think, for everyone that undertakes it. And I just see no point in hiding that
Yeah.
for myself or for others, you know?
Well, and I think a lot of people are interested in knowing, especially, I think you'll start to get a following of other real estate agents
Yeah.
because we all gravitate towards the people that are being successful in the industry.
Yeah.
And that's something that like you're doing without knowing that you're doing. Oh
Yeah.
my hell. But anyways, so like keep sticking to the disciplines.
Yeah.
We were talking with in at a Tom Ferry event for the leaderships, and and the biggest focus and the biggest takeaway that we got from that whole thing is going back to the basics at a high level with discipline. And you have to be able to have that discipline and that fortitude to keep pushing forward, because this year is a lot harder than the other years. Not only are we having low inventory, but we're having to juggle that low inventory with the objections of the interest rates are super high. Nobody's confident in our economy. And so whether they really need to buy or want to buy, they're still having a very, very hard time pulling that trigger. But that's where a real estate expert comes in. That's where we come in to help educate them to know if it's the right time for them. And my mom says, work hard, but learn to have fun with those who are most important to you.
Mrs. Johnson. Sage wisdom.
So, but yeah, so anything else you want to kind of talk about before we start wrapping things up?
Nothing too crazy.
I mean, you have been a like, I mean, you've just blended right into the team and the culture.
Totally.
Yes.
For I mean, we have a couple. I mean, I don't think we came up with those names, but if you ever want to compare Andrew, I would say your Hollywood doppelganger is Wreck It Ralph.
It is. That's generally how I introduce myself.
Or Seth Rogen.
Or Seth Rogen. Yeah, if you're listening to this audio only.
Seth Rogen, everybody. Real estate agent on Infinite Real Estate.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, but I mean, like I said, every morning we're making our phone calls. You are in the office, ready to go by 8:30, pounding the phones, getting through your phone calls, because that's important for you and your family for the success that you're looking for.
Yeah.
And so
You told me it was.
it
And
100% is.
who the hell am I to think I know any friggin' better? So, okay.
So true.
Well, the one thing you can always count on is me popping my head out of the office saying, "Hey, Andrew, give me the context behind that phone call."
No, but that's been so that's how I got all my appointments last week.
Yeah.
Really, I think it was maybe Monday, or no, it was probably Tuesday, because I think Tuesday was the first day I actually like. It's like, okay, we're in the rhythm. Let's do this. You had pulled me in. It was like, oh, hey, what happened there? Like, oh, they just said they weren't looking anymore. He goes, did you ask why? I was like, well, no. He goes, ask more questions. I'm like, gosh, I know that. It's so good to get those reminders. But then, like, I feel like all the good conversations I've had have all started basically with, oh, we're not looking anymore.
Yeah.
They've all started like that. Every single one.
We're not looking anymore, but tell me why you've stopped looking.
Yeah. Tell me why you stopped looking. Oh, okay. Cool. And then you can have a conversation. Like that's the only way I've been able to do anything over this last week is just like, hey, and I've kind of made it like a little rule. I'm going to ask 3 questions before I get off the phone with anyone.
Yeah.
The more questions you ask, the interesting thing is you can go through a whole conversation just asking questions.
Yeah.
And you will build some of the best trust with those clients without saying anything about yourself.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't know that.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people think that we have to tell you how great we are.
Mm-mm.
Nobody wants to know how great you are. They have a problem and we're here to solve it.
100%.
And so the more questions you ask, the more trust you're going to build, which in return becomes appointments and closings.
Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss.
Oh, I met
Is-
him at a conference
Oh,
once.
did you?
Phenomenal.
Yeah, he is Never Split the Difference is one of my fundamental sales books. I think it really is probably the foundation of how I've learned to sell. And yeah, that's a big part of the book. Like, hey, ask questions. Let people talk about
Huge.
themselves, their own situation.
Yeah.
Yeah, like coming forward and be like, oh, I'm going to be the greatest real estate agent. I'm going to be the best for you. It's like, everyone wants
That's
to
not
buy.
it.
Yeah, no one wants to be sold. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Cool.
But yeah, every call, at least
it.
3 questions. And if it really feels like they're unqualified or, not really not looking for some, okay, fine, I'll let you go. But I got to ask my 3. That's the only way I've been able to do anything over the last week. And again, you pulled me aside and were like, hey, you need to ask more questions. Cool. I'll ask more questions.
Same.
Worked
Same.
out.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to keep asking questions.
Yep. Keep asking them. I mean, I listen. I mean, that's my favorite thing to do is to listen in on the conversations, find out where the shortfall is because we've all done it. I mean,
Yeah.
Chad's really good on the phone. He's really good about carrying on conversation with people. But we noticed when he first started, he was having phenomenal conversations and then saying, okay, I'll talk to you later. See ya. I'm like, Chad, you're
I was
Close the
like,
deal.
cool.
you're wasting your time and their time by not asking for the appointment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Next
Yeah.
time you get on there, I don't even care if it's an awkward situation. Let them know you're looking forward to meeting with them. When would be a good time?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then ever since he did that, it was like a
You
light
told me
switch just
that?
turned on.
Yeah. Similar experience to you, Andrew. The same day he told me that, it was at lunch, I think, and then went back to the office, made phone calls, set like 3 appointments. And
There
I
you
was
go.
like,
What a baller.
there you go. And that's when business actually started happening. So,
Sure.
but yeah,
Yeah.
cool.
Well, cool. No, I'm super excited to have you here. You're going to hear a lot more from Andrew. I mean, he's
Hope so.
definitely making waves. If they wanted to follow you, what's the best way to follow you?
Yeah, my Instagram, I think, and TikTok are Andrew Sells Utah at
Andrew Sells Utah.
Yeah.
Sweet. All right. Yeah. So, I mean, I
You'll hear more from me.
we're going to hear more from you, but I
Yeah.
guarantee I am so excited. Like my gut feeling says you're going to pull 6 figures before the end of this year.
Boom.
Hopefully. Appreciate it.
I think you
So,
will.
And guess what? If I don't give a fuck. Still
Yeah.
gonna keep calling.
yeah,
I'm still gonna keep calling.
you're going to do good. And we're here to root you on. We're here to see you thrive. I mean, that's what we do, and that's kind of where the whole brand Infinite came from. Is it's bigger than me.
Yeah.
It's bigger than the people that work here. We're here to thrive together. We're here to make
Yeah.
an impact in the communities that we live in.
Yeah.
Through
Well,
selling real estate.
I remember that was one of the things that attracted me to Infinite, was to hear Keegan talk about you. And just to hear like how successful you already were and now what you're doing. Because I think there's definitely a part of me that's like, man, if I had that much coming in from investment
Yeah.
property, is like I'm probably just gonna go do a podcast full time. Like but like yeah, like there was just very much I trust Keegan a lot. I think he is a good judge of character. And then in meeting you, Jared, it's like, hey, you're trying to help me be successful too. And that's
Yep.
Well, thank
that's
you.
huge.
100%.
So appreciate that.
All right. Well, we got to get back
Thank
to our
you,
phone calls.
Andrew.
I don't know if we're going to do phone calls. We might do something. We might just harass
Yeah.
the
Let's go
Angie.
harass some people.
Angie never
Yeah.
popped in today, so I think the rest of the day we're gonna harass Angie. She's probably in cutting paychecks and
Yeah.
commissions and stuff. But it's time to harass her.
Thanks, guys.
Good
All
deal.
right, guys, we really appreciate you being here. We're signing out. This is we're in the Own It studio. We'll look forward to talking to you guys, or I don't know, look forward to having you guys listen to us again. How about that? Let's just get
Yeah.
to some music.